Hello, everyone. How are you? This is Maureen with my crochet story and my cohort.
Connie with All Handmade. And today,
Hello. Go ahead.
hello everybody. This is Connie with All Handmade and my southern sister. Whoop, other side.
Whoop, whoop. Yep. So, hello, Froggy, and hello, Miss Pat Cray. How are y'all this morning? Hope everyone is doing well.
Yes.
Very excited
For a
that you're
Friday
here with us
morning.
today. Yeah, for a Friday morning. Kickoff
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
to the weekend.
Yep, yep, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
And it's supposed to be stormy here this evening and tomorrow, so it's going to be a weekend.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Oh, I'm
Well,
glad you're doing better, Miss Pat.
yes. And
I'm
yes,
hot.
Froggy, you did get front row.
Yes, you did.
Hmm.
Woohoo.
I tell you what, trying to figure out all this scheduling on StreamYard. Hello, Sandra D. How are you?
Hey, Sandra D.
And there's Tiffany. Good morning. How are you?
Tiffany. I don't know if you mind me calling you Tiff. So
Well,
Tiffany. Some people do that, and
I
that's
know.
okay. That's okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, she's never
I wouldn't
corrected
even.
me when I've said Tiff. So
Yeah. So
anyway,
how are you ladies this morning?
I think everybody's doing fine so far. And Pat said that she was on the mend, so that's great.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Tiff says she. Oh, Tiff is fine. See, good. That
Yay.
just
Thank
feels
you,
like more
Tiff.
of a friend.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. And there's our little effluent, Miss Carrie. Good
And
morning,
that's
Carrie.
my Carrie and my
And then
froggy too.
Michelle.
Hey, now, Michelle. So glad you come here with us.
Yes.
Yeah,
Well, I wish
what's
I
everybody
was.
working on?
I want to. I just want to come in, Nana Michelle, on drinking her water every time I see her. She's drinking water.
Mm-hmm.
I
Keep
wish I could
standing stuff.
discipline myself to do that.
I don't like it that well.
I love to put some little flavoring in my water. That's about the only way I'll drink it.
Well, now, if I had some of them flavorings, like they have at the Sonic, that you can just squirt
Oh,
in it, push and squirt. Now, I
yep.
might could drink some water that way.
I know what you mean. I know what you
I don't
mean.
want none of them little packet things, sugar
Mm-hmm.
free.
Yeah.
No, 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 no.
Well, yeah.
We've had this
Anyone,
discussion before about sweet and unsweet, so
I was going to
we'll not go
say,
there today. We'll
anyone who
not go
takes
there.
a cup and a half of sugar to a gallon of tea, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, now we'll not start that today.
No, we're not going to start that
Not today.
today. We already settled the issue about the tea, so we're good.
I'm burning up.
So I hope everyone is excited about our topic today.
Uh
We've
huh.
been having a little trouble with a particular pattern that we got to do a shawl. And it got us onto the discussion of how do you handle mistakes in a pattern, whether you purchased
Mm-hmm.
it or it was free.
What's free? Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So that we
A
thought that would
lot
be
of
a great discussion to have with you today. Good morning, my little sister Rita. How are you,
Hey,
sweetheart?
Rita. Oh, say that better.
Me too.
A lot of us I know are like me, and we surf. I guess that's
Yes.
what they say. Surf the internet.
Mm-hmm.
I call it stalking, but
Yep.
same thing. And if we can get it free, we're gonna get it free somewhere.
That's right.
And that's no problem. Free is good, very, very good. There's not a lot of designers, whether it be blankets or cardigans or hats or gloves or scarf, whatever that I will pay for a pattern for. I have to really, really, really like them before I'll
Mhm.
buy patterns. But there's a reason for that.
Good morning, Sandra SC. How are you, sweetheart?
Hey, Sandra, there's a reason for that. And that
Mhm.
reason is if I find a mistake in a pattern, I'm real cautious about going back and buying
Yeah.
from that particular designer because of the mistakes. But now I do give them two or three chances before I'll completely say, no, I won't buy from that person.
Right.
Okay. But our discussion began with how many times do you forgive a designer before you stop using their patterns because of mistakes?
Right.
How do you
Right.
guys do? Because I
How
could
do
be
you?
wrong in thinking the way I think. I'm not saying I'm right or I'm perfect by
Right.
any means. So that's what we wanted to discuss with all the rest of our crochet friends. How many
Mhm.
times do you forgive mistakes in a pattern before you say, nah, I don't like that designer?
Right. Hello,
Hey,
Suzanne, sweetheart. How are
Suzanne,
you?
the Swedish Yanni Hooker.
Well,
I
as a
love to see her
designer,
cook.
mhm, Froggy says I forgive occasional mistakes, and a
Oh,
lot
yeah.
of times it could just be a typo. Um,
Yes.
and
I'm
we have
talking
to have,
glaring
yes,
mistakes.
glaring mistakes, right? Myself as a designer, um,
Hmm. Yeah,
I
you
try to
design
be,
stuff, Maureen.
yeah, I try to be very explicit in what I'm doing. And that's why I always send out my patterns to be tested amongst other crocheters, because sometimes the
Hmm.
way I say something may not translate well to someone else who's doing it. So that's why I like to have, more than one person
Yep.
look at what I'm typing up. Um,
Yep.
but see, I take care of all my own. I type it up, I send it out. When it comes back, I look at the recommendations. If I like it, great. If don't, and most of the time I do, folks. I mean, I'm not kidding you. I really do like the way someone else says it, as opposed to how I want to say it. Because sometimes
Hmm.
I get just like too technical, and I
Uh-huh.
have had a couple of people tell me, Maureen, if they don't know how to do this, then they don't need to be crocheting. And or if they don't know how to do this, then this is not at a level where they need to be crocheting yet. Um,
Hmm. Hey,
and
Cindy.
good morning, Cindy. How are you? But there are so many tutorials out there for different types of stitches, and we all use pretty much the same stitches, whether it's a cluster or it's a shell, whatever. So if you don't understand what the designer is doing, you can just Google it and or YouTube it, and somebody is showing you, go on. But the kind of mistakes that
But
we're talking about today.
a
Go
good
ahead.
designer, though, a good designer will, for stitches that are general like that, like a
Hmm.
shell or
Yeah.
whatever the case may be, cluster, whatever,
Hmm.
they will have in their description their version of that stitch.
That's right.
That way,
That's
there's
right.
no mistaking what they want you to do. And if it's not
Hmm.
written out that way, then I kind of give a little, do you mean this or do you mean this? Or can I
Right.
just make up my own, you
Right.
know,
Right.
thing?
uh, but anyway, we really want to hone in more of, when you're following a particular row and what they tell you to do does not work out the way I mean, how do I want to say it?
It's
Um,
not working with
yeah,
what you've
I guess
got.
that's just the best way to say it. we have come across,
Yes, thank you.
sorry, telemarketer. Um, so we were in our discussion and talking about um, patterns and the mistakes that they have and everything. Do you um, do you ever contact the designer of that pattern and say, "Hey, I think there's a mistake here," or
Hmm.
"I'm not understanding what you want done here. Can you help me out?" What do you do
Hmm.
when you come across a pattern, especially if you've paid for it? That's like Connie said,
Yeah.
that's where I get aggravated. Um, and being a
If I,
crocheter and a designer, that's when I really
mhm.
get frustrated. So, how do you handle it? Our viewers,
when
how
I
do you handle it?
when I've paid for a pattern, I expect that pattern to have went through the testers,
Multiple layers. Yes.
however many the case may be,
Right.
and I expect the designer to have gone through it to begin with, then go through the testers, and then when it come back, the designer to go through it again
Right.
before they send it out for somebody to pay money for. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, there's no way I would do it without double checking, you know, what I
Right.
had sent out for somebody to buy, to buy. I
Good
don't want
morning,
it to have,
Angela.
hey, Frozen Angela, but like I said, I'll forgive mistakes occasionally.
Mm-hmm.
But
Like,
and I have been on the website, of particular designers or whatever, and I will email them on the site, where their pattern is free. I don't understand this. Do you mean such and such, or did you mean this and this and this? And I have had them say, thank you so much for catching that mistake. And
yep.
they would fix it.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it was just a free pattern on the website, they would
Right.
fix it. And
I
that
love,
to me makes me come back to them
that's
again and
right.
again and again. Because if
Uh,
they're willing to fix a mistake, then they're willing for it to be correct,
Well, they want you
no
to come
matter.
back. You know,
Oh, of
I like
course.
Rita's comment. She says, and if you contact the designer for a paid pattern, you really don't want a snarky
No,
answer.
no, you
No,
do
you don't.
not ever.
Yeah.
Because I look at it, I had a friend of mine that I was helping just here a while back, and she was having a hard time with what she was working on. And was trying my best to help her all along the way, because I look at it as if I'm helping somebody. I don't want them to quit because of
No.
something I've done or not
Right.
done correctly.
Good
I don't want
morning,
them to get
Nammy
this.
G.
Hey, Nammy G, I, 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 I just can't stand the thoughts of somebody quitting crocheting
Right.
because I can't help them,
Mm-hmm.
And if I ever wrote a pattern, it would have to be correct. Number one, two, easy, you
Right.
know, to a certain extent, and
Right.
three, accessible.
Mm-hmm.
That's just me. That's me.
Right.
So,
Well, and I think it was Angela. Let me go back up here. No, it was Freezabee. I'm sorry, sweetheart. I did not see you come in. So nice to have you with us here today.
that's Cindy.
Um, Cindy, thank you. I was going to say, I forgot your name. She says, I hate when they don't give stitch counts at the end of each row. Now,
Yes.
I have to admit that I
But I
am
hate worse when
guilty.
they're wrong.
Right. I have been guilty to forget to write down the stitch count at the end of my rows, especially like in my little book here. In fact, I'm typing up a pattern right now, and I did write down at the end of each row while I was writing it out. I was going, wait, wait, wait. So I
Uh-huh.
do have a few patterns I need to go back and do that on because many times when I'm typing up a pattern or as I am working up a pattern, it's like, nope, I don't like that. So I'll rip it
Yeah.
out and I'll try another way to make a stitch work, especially if that's what I have in my mind. And so I am
Hmm.
really bad about not keeping up with the stitches at the end of my row. But I find that
And
when I
that's
go
another
back,
thing.
excuse me,
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go
No,
ahead.
I
I'm
was just
sorry.
going to say that I do then, after I've scratched out my pattern, I'll go back and make another one so that I can count out the stitches at the
Mhm,
end of the row. But
mhm. And that's another thing for designers that have a website.
right,
If they make a mistake, do they go back and fix it?
right.
And like we're starting to do Sophie's Universe. That's been a
Mm-hmm.
crochet along since 2016 or 17, I'm not sure. But
Sure.
if you found a mistake in that particular pattern, just for instance, not
Right.
saying there are any, because I've done it a million times and I haven't found one, but saying there was one, and you go back to the designer and you say, I think they might be a mistake right here. I've looked at it
Mm-hmm.
2 or 3 times and it just is not coming out like it should. Can
Right.
you take a look at it? Maybe it's just me. If it's right, tell me what I'm doing wrong. Okay. But if
Mm-hmm.
it's wrong, how far back do you go on the website correcting your mistakes? Do you go back to 2016 or 17 and correct it? Or do you just say, I'm so sorry and leave it? How does
Right.
that work?
Hello, Tracy. How are you, sweetheart? And
Hi,
hello, Crochet
Tracy.
in Agreement. How are you doing?
Hey, crochet in agreement.
She
Stitch
said,
count
yes.
really helps ensure
Mm-hmm.
accuracy. For the one
Right.
using the pattern, yeah, you've been lurking and listening. You better get on up in here and say something. You know
Yeah.
better.
Yes, exactly. I would first make a notation to say that even though this pattern's been out here however long, um,
Mhm,
a
mhm.
mistake has been found, and I appreciate you finding that mistake. And I would make mention of the mistake was found such and such row,
Uh-huh.
whatever. And
And
I would
revise on such and such date. That way,
right,
everybody's going to know if you found the mistake before then, this is when I fixed it. You know.
right, yeah, to let them know.
And we
Number
had
one, you have
somebody
been
else.
contacted. Yes.
We had somebody else that might want to come up here and give her opinion about stuff.
Well, I don't know who that might be. Let's
I
just
don't either. I
see.
have no idea.
There's our baby girl,
Hi,
Linda
everybody.
Cleary.
Oh,
There
my.
she is. There she is. That's my Carrie. That's my Carrie. Carrie, Carrie,
Thank
Carrie,
you,
Carrie.
Froggy. Yes, please, if you don't mind, hit the thumbs up on your way in or way out. It really does help the channel. We'd appreciate it very
Yes,
much.
it'll
Hi,
help Maureen
Suzanne,
channel.
sweetie. Um, I agree with the stitch count at the end of the row. It's really, really helpful because
Mm-hmm.
then you're you're right. You're
Well, and
right
it
on
Yes.
also helps a beginner. You know,
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
it really does help beginners. You don't want
Well,
them to get frustrated with why isn't mine looking like the tutorial, or why isn't mine, looking like
Exactly.
a picture, if you happen to give pictures along the way of what it should look like at a certain point. That's
Yes.
why it's very important to have the stitch count at the end of the rows.
but if you're
And
gonna go ahead.
another thing too, if you have stitch counts at the end of every row,
Mm-hmm.
when you start your next row, it should be right. If you've counted your stitches and they match up with what the designer has in their pattern, then your next row should be a breeze. And if
Right,
your stitch count doesn't match what they have, there's either a mistake, yours or theirs, one
right,
way or the other.
right.
Mm-hmm.
So that keeps a lot
Hello, Divergent.
Hi, DC.
How are
that
you,
keeps a lot
sweetheart?
of questioning down. Do I
Hi,
have this one?
Gloria.
I want the next row work because this one's not right. Go back to
Right.
the next one right. How
Mm-hmm.
far that keeps as a consumer, someone who's
Right.
using the pattern. That keeps us where we can go back row by row by row and find our mistakes. But if the pattern's not correct to begin with,
Right.
Ooh, the headache.
Yeah.
Well, and if the pattern is correct, how many times? I love
Love
you,
ya.
Connie. I just figured I wasn't going to sing because this isn't my show.
Well, that's
Um,
okay.
Well, I thought that was for you. I love
um,
it because you think.
Looky here. Looky here. Looky
What?
here.
what I was going to say is, if you get a pattern and it's correct and you enjoy it, how many times are you going to do that pattern? I've done this
Exactly.
pattern. I love this blanket.
Over and
This is
over
the
again.
blanket that I auctioned off that Leslie bought.
Mm-hmm.
That was
Mhm.
purple, gray, and white.
Yep.
And I have another blanket that I'm doing with this same stitch. Hi, Laura.
Good morning,
But I
Laura.
mean, if the
Froggy.
pattern is done correctly, chances are you're going to do it more than one time.
Yes.
That's right.
Well,
That's absolutely right.
not
And if the
only are you
pattern is
going to,
wrong, you might not go back and do it ever again.
well,
Even if
here's
they
the
correct.
other thing, too. As a designer, I would like to know that not only is the person who has my pattern happy with it, but they're going to share it. You know what I mean?
That's right.
They're going to say,
Oh,
hey,
I
you
found
need to
this
go
pattern. It's
here.
so fun.
Yes. Yes. But if it's not
Exactly.
right, or if it's too difficult for them to understand, or there are too many mistakes, then that pattern's going to get thrown to the side. They're going to be hesitant about picking out getting another pattern from
Mm-hmm.
me. And,
Yep.
you've defeated the purpose of trying to share out visions that you
Yeah.
have in your head. So,
Yeah.
but our main question for you today was, what do you do? Do you take the time to contact that person and say that I found a problem? Or do
Mm-hmm.
does your
Just get mad and
project
go
that you
home.
started on and you can't get it to work, does it become
I
a
rip it
UFO?
out. I rip it out and do something else with it.
Mm-hmm.
I actually
See,
will contact a designer. Now, with the
I,
pattern we're working on, I did not because I knew others were contacting the designer. So I did
yes,
not.
Yeah.
that's
No.
me. If I know somebody else is gonna
Okay.
try to help like that, then I won't. But other than that, if you don't know for certain that somebody else is gonna do it, do you take
Mhm.
the chance? Do you go to the
Yes,
designer?
I do.
I do too.
A lot of people are afraid of making the designer mad, but I
Oh,
promise you,
don't.
most
No,
Oh,
don't
people
be
would
no,
afraid.
rather
uh-uh.
have
Um, I've designed patterns and
mhm,
had my patterns out for a while, and they went from testers to an editor,
mhm.
and then they went out for sale. And no one said anything to me, and I was unaware. Now, remember, I am visually impaired, so
Right.
it's much
Mhm.
harder for me put to write the pattern. And no one said
Yes.
anything to me, and no one said anything to me until a year later. And I didn't know that there was an error in my pattern.
Exactly. Exactly.
And I am forever grateful that I was told.
Yes.
So, as a designer, I am very thankful to be told. So, my pattern now needs to be re edited. But now remember, the first time in the beginning, it went through testers and it was missed. It went through an editor and it was missed. So, I am
Exactly.
forever grateful that someone caught the errors.
Right.
I
Exactly. That
appreciate
was
that.
it
I
too.
am never insulted.
Shoot,
I am
no.
thrilled.
No.
Nammy.
No.
Yeah. I had an
That's
interesting response
obvious.
from a pattern writer. She suggested I find an easier pattern. Number one, if someone said that to me, that'd be it. I wouldn't even care
I'm
about what
done.
the rest of it was that they wrote.
That's
That'd
right.
be a write off in
Nope.
my book.
I
And
would
I've
and I
seen
wouldn't
never,
go back.
Mandy.
I would
Yeah.
never go back to that designer, and I would let people
Never.
know that this person is rude
Mhm.
and don't use
Mm-hmm.
their patterns.
Exactly. We women talk, and we
Yep.
Because
crocheters help each other. We're
Yeah,
not going to
uh,
working
let
up is
somebody else
really
do a
of
pattern
all
portable.
the
that's
of all the
bad.
designers I've reached out to, and there's been quite a few I've reached out to, they have all been very open to listening to what I had to
Mm-hmm.
question,
Hmm.
to suggest,
Oh,
and
yes.
I never had a problem. And
Just
I've
like
been
Rita
more
said,
than open to criticism, believe me.
just like Rita said,
Yes.
I would never buy from her and I would let others know. You know, the worst
Mm.
advertisement you can have is an unhappy customer.
Mm-hmm.
And you
That's right.
know,
That's right.
we just as crocheters, I mean, there is a lot that it's not only just buying the pattern if it's not free, but it's buying the yarn, you know?
Yeah,
You would think
Exactly.
that a pattern designer would want to take the time to help somebody to say, okay, where is it that you found this error?
Right,
Let's look at it together and let me see if it's an error or if maybe you're misreading it.
right.
Because you
yes,
could be,
Exactly.
I
Let me help
misread stuff
you.
all the
Help.
time.
yes.
Mhm.
It's more
Yeah.
important to me to fix my pattern and to resend it out to
Right.
everyone who had one than it is for me to sit here and go, well, you did it wrong. No, no, I'd rather fix
Yes.
that pattern,
Yep.
which I'm trying to
And
have
another
fixed.
question. I'm not a designer. I have never written a
Mhm.
pattern. I will say that. But as a consumer, if you buy a certain designer's pattern or you get it free, okay,
Mhm.
how many testers did they put it through?
Right.
Okay, how many editors, like Froggy said, did it go through? And how many times did that designer go back to that same tester and same editor and it come up wrong the next time?
That's
You
right.
know, that how many times do you do that before you fire your tester?
Right.
Oh, I
Or just
learned.
one.
That's right,
That was
Rita.
Froggy
Yep.
learned the hard way.
yeah, well,
Rita
yeah,
says, I learned in customer service that one unhappy customer gives you a loss of at least 10 sales.
That's true.
exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
Yep.
Because we're going to help each other. If we have a
Mm-hmm.
pattern that's fun and easy and oh, just a breeze, then we're going to say, man, I love this pattern for making blankets. Or,
Right.
ooh, I found me a cardigan the other day that I just whipped through. It was so
Right.
easy. You know,
Mm-hmm.
we get a bad one, everybody gonna know about it. It's like, don't do this, and it was awful. I couldn't even
Right.
make it halfway through it, and I had to put it to the
Mm-hmm.
side.
Right.
And nobody else is gonna mess with it.
Right.
That's just the
You
way it is. But
and
if you
with
take the time to contact that designer and ask them about their mistake, and like she said, get a smarty, snarky, insulting remark, you're done. You're done. But if you get one that's absolutely like Froggy, I'm forever grateful that you came to
I
me and
am.
showed me this mistake, this error.
Yes.
I will fix it immediately. How many times you
mm-hmm.
gonna go back to that designer,
Right.
right?
Right. Mm-hmm. Well, Pat said 4 years ago she started crocheting. I found a pattern I really liked. It was beginner friendly, but she had a problem with it. So she contacted the person that designed the pattern. So was it a good outcome for you, Pat?
Exactly. Did they tell you? Did they help you? Did they turn you away? Did they tell you to
I
find
hope
something
they have.
easier? Oh, that
That
irks
that
me. I can't
that
imagine.
taps my rear.
And like Rita said, which Sophie's Universe is a very good example. She said that pattern's been out there since 2015 and she's had it
Mm,
tested several times before the pattern,
mm,
probably ever hit the market. And
before
she
it
says, I
ever
don't
went
think
out.
there's been a single mistake in it.
Well, I think way back when they might have been one that somebody found, and they went back. She went back immediately, corrected it, and issued a lot of us use Ravelry. And if there's
Mhm.
a correction in a pattern on Ravelry, they'll give you a notice that somebody has updated that pattern to come get
Right.
you an updated version, you know, that kind of
Oh,
Mhm.
thing. And
Pat.
it went immediately out to everybody that had it. So,
Mhm. Pat
That's
says
not
she
right.
told me that nothing was wrong with her pattern and that I should not contact her again. See, that's
That's
somebody
wrong.
that's right.
I
None of
would
us are
not.
perfect.
that's
I wouldn't use her, and I would let my friends know not to use her.
Yeah. Yeah.
that's right. That's right.
That is not
Because that
right.
kind of designer don't want to work with nobody. They don't want to work at all.
A lot of times,
But it,
Naomi,
it,
it's the
it could
pattern.
be that it's the designer.
No,
Yeah.
I'm
ma'am.
sorry. Go ahead, Froggy.
No, a lot of times it can be the pattern. It can. Basically, when you have a pattern
Hmm.
and you have these different stitches, the first thing I do is I go look up on how to do the stitches.
Mhm.
And if
Hmm.
I
Yep.
and I'll do like a test swatch on how to do this stitch. And if I'm able to accomplish this stitch, I'll go back to the pattern and I'll try it again. And
Mhm.
then if I'm having more
Mhm.
difficulty, I will then contact the designer and ask for more
Exactly.
clarification.
Right.
For
Now,
help.
I've never had anyone turn me down, but if they turned me down, I then would not even try the pattern and would
Right.
no longer
Be
seek out
interested in it.
Exactly.
anything in that person's store or
Right.
anything. And I would definitely alert people, don't use this designer, they are not very helpful.
Right.
Yeah.
But no,
And
I
I will blame myself.
Right.
I
Me
blame
too.
myself first before I blame
Right.
anybody else. And I will say I made a mistake, rip it out and try again. Rip it out, try again until I'm just absolutely frustrated. Then I'll stop, look at the pattern, see where I'm having a problem, and see if it's me. Or if I'm reading it wrong, I'll go to somebody and say, "Hey, have you done such and such pattern? Did you have a problem on yada yada yada?" They might say,
Right.
"I sure did. I had to do it this way,"
Mhm.
and help you. Then you perfectly. It wasn't the pattern, it wasn't even you. You just didn't understand it. But if
Right.
it absolutely positively is the pattern, that's what we're discussing. Not
Right.
not any doubt about it that it's something in the pattern that wasn't right. What do you do with it? And if you
Hello,
go to a
exactly,
designer,
Madonna. How are
Madonna.
you?
Exactly, Madonna.
But
Exactly.
that's
Hi, Madonna.
I'm fangirling. Sorry.
you're
I love me
absolutely
some Madonna.
correct, Madonna. Sometimes it's a pattern, but it's the way it's
Mm,
written. Um, I guess when I finally decided to jump on the amigurumi
Mhm.
bandwagon,
ah,
I probably should
mm-mm,
not have gotten a hold of this first designer because I believe that she writes her patterns in her native tongue, which obviously I think is not English. And so when I got the translated form of it, not knowing, this, um, it was
mhm,
written weird. I mean, not that I couldn't understand it. It was just that it was a little backwards from what I was used to reading in crochet. And I got to one point and I finally had to call Froggy and I said, Froggy, this is my first amigurumi and I need for you to help me. What in the world is this person trying to tell me? And she said, oh, well, it's just
mhm,
this. And so I called her a couple
mhm.
more times because not that there were mistakes in the pattern,
Yep.
it was
No,
the
no.
language translation. All right. And I love her patterns and everything. It's just that now I know after working through two of her patterns that whenever I pull hers up, I'm going to have to get my brain in a different mindset. So,
Mm,
that there's nothing wrong with the pattern, there's nothing wrong with the design. It's just that sometimes translation can create a problem if
Yeah.
English for us is not their native tongue. You know,
Exactly.
It didn't help that
And
you
that,
trying amigurumi
I
instead
know.
of starting in the beginning, you went straight to intermediate.
Yeah, I
right?
know. Well, like we said, go big or go home, right? And that's
Yeah,
what I
you did.
did. So,
And that's what, like Pat says, ever since then, she won't use a pattern. She wants a tutorial. But
right.
the problem with that is if you make a YouTube tutorial for your pattern, it's not free anymore.
Mm-mm.
I mean,
No.
it's you're not going to buy it after
Right.
that. 90% of the time, if there is a YouTube tutorial for a pattern, you're going to go to that tutorial and get it for free. You're not
Not
going to
Right.
pay for it
necessarily.
if you can get it for free.
Not necessarily, because some
Most of the
people
time.
don't want to take the time to watch the tutorial. They'd rather read the pattern.
Right.
Yes. Yes.
So it depends.
Right. It depends on your learning
Mm,
style too, you know. Um,
yes.
Madonna says way back in the day when we were still crocheting with stitch, all patterns were written exactly in the same format and terms, and now it's everything go. That's right, Madonna.
It
Uh,
is.
Well,
that's why
I
as
did
a
look up.
go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I looked up. I looked on the Yarn Craft Council website, and I looked on the Crochet Guild of America website, and I looked pretty good on both of them, and I saw nothing whatsoever as far as a guide to designers about correcting mistakes.
Yeah.
Nothing. Nothing.
Right.
Everybody is supposed to go by the U.S. stitch guideline when they're
Right.
writing a pattern.
In
That's
the
right.
They
US.
don't.
Yes,
But
in the
in the
They don't.
US.
US,
hmm
and they don't.
And there's a lot of different uh, ways a stitch pattern can be written.
That's
The
right.
UK is different from us, so we
Right.
have to change that over. But there's nothing on either one of them about a council, a recommendation, a guideline, anything about making a designer correct their mistake.
Mhm.
No,
Right.
It's like they don't want to put their toe in the mud, you know.
right.
They don't want to make nobody mad or
Right.
whatever. But we're human. We're not
Right.
calling anybody out nowhere,
No.
anytime. That's not what we're discussing. We're discussing as
The consumer.
designers,
Mhm.
designers on this side, Maureen and Froggy. They've designed. Me and Carrie have not. I haven't. Have you, Carrie? Have you ever written a pattern?
I
I
I
sure.
haven't written a pattern, but I have made up my own stuff, and everybody's like,
Yeah,
"Why didn't you
yeah,
write that down?" And I'm like, and now I look
exactly.
at it. I mean, I'm looking at it right now, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh,
Mm.
all of it,
It's
Tiffany. I find that
we
pattern
want
very,
both sides of
very
the story.
difficult.
Oh no. Cuz
Yeah, you want cuddles.
I got to make that for Warren.
I just
Oh
find it
no.
difficult. Can I do it? Yes, but I still find it a difficult pattern. I think they went way overboard with the way they made it by doing like the ear is a piece, and I mean it's a spiral piece too, by the way. I just think they went
Wow.
overboard with it. It's way too piecey, way too much sewing,
Oh.
Ah.
and I don't like that. There's more sewing
Mm.
in that Dobby than there was in the Kraken.
Oh wow.
Holy moly. Woo. No.
Yeah.
That
And
tells you
there
something.
is a lot of difference between designers and their styles and their
Mhm.
what do you call it? Whether they do
Terminology.
amigurumi or whether they just do blankets
Right.
or
Right.
their style basically.
Mhm.
And you're either gonna like that designer or you're not gonna like them.
Right.
But a
Yeah.
lot of
Um,
difference between whether or not you like them is how well that pattern goes over for you, how
That's right.
you perceive
it's
that pattern.
okay. I'm just not into all that sewing.
Yeah,
Right.
So much
I don't
sewing.
like sewing. I don't like sewing. Period.
I
If I
don't
can
mind
crochet it
some.
together, I will.
Hmm.
I don't mind
No
some.
matter
I
what.
just don't like all of it. And
Mm-mm.
so to me, it's a more difficult pattern because it requires a tremendous amount of sewing.
Well, with your sight impediment too, it's a little harder for you to place ears
It is.
in the correct
Hmm.
position. Or if you've just got a blob and you want to put two ears up here, how are you
It's harder
gonna?
for me to do.
Yeah,
Exactly,
it's hard.
Sandra. A
You
lot of the
know,
older patterns are much less wordy than the new ones.
Sandra,
Yes.
since you brought that up, you know, the patterns, and I'm talking about the 60s,
Right.
the doilies that were written in the 50s and 60s,
Mhm.
or the bedspread doily patterns,
Yep.
they're written as if people know what they're doing.
Right.
Yeah.
They're
Yep.
not written, they're written for intermediate crocheters. They're not written
Hmm.
for beginners.
Yep.
Right.
Um, that's why they're not so wordy.
Right.
I
Yep.
found out doing I don't even remember what pattern it was, but I was like, oh, it was the bedspread that we
We
turned into
altered. Yeah. To
that we
make
turned into
runners.
Oh
a table
yes.
runner. Oh my
The
lord.
infamous bedspread. Whew.
Oh yeah, I don't ever want to do that
Mm.
pattern again unless I do a bedspread. But although if your daughter loves it, we can do it in purple.
Tiffany,
Glutton for punishment. But
Tiffany, I
you're
did a
right.
worst.
It is written. They're
Mhm.
written a lot different.
Right.
Yeah.
Tiffany, I used a 3.75 millimeter hook with a worsted weight yarn, which is what I do all my amigurumi in.
Rita said that's how the Norwegian pattern is written. So little written instruction that it's a miracle we did them at all.
Mhm.
Well, that's another thing too. I don't understand how um the I don't understand how they ever came about beginner, starter, intermediate.
Right.
I don't understand how that became something that you could put on a pattern. You know,
Right.
it to me it should be backed up some. It should be easier.
Right.
You know, if
Right.
it says intermediate, that means this thing is hard. If you don't know what you're doing, don't start it.
Right.
Right.
That's what that should mean. And if it says beginner, it should be easy enough that the very first person who's never crocheted anything can pick that up and by your instructions
Yes.
make whatever you're
Hmm.
wanting.
And
That's what
exactly.
beginner is to me. They have to be able by your instructions in the pattern to make whatever it is, even if they've never crocheted. Never.
I agree.
Hmm. Madonna
But
says
if
back
it's
in the
intermediate, it
60s,
should be hard.
yeah, a newbie wouldn't even attempt a doily or a bedspread. Amen, Madonna.
Exactly.
I don't know. I mean, I started crocheting when I was 12. I know I wasn't out of high school yet before Grandma gave me a pattern to work on a twin size coverlet, for my bed. Not the bedspread,
Mm-hmm.
but just, the coverlet to go over the top. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And I mean, it wasn't an easy pattern either. That was my first introduction to pineapples, in fact. But,
Ooh.
mm-hmm.
Ooh.
Yep. Yep.
Lovely.
I saw
Well, that,
somebody's video. I'm trying to remember who it was. I inspired somebody. What's so funny?
Sandra said Madonna and I were around when patterns were chiseled in rocks.
So I was watching somebody's video, and I think it was Jeannie T, and I inspired her to do that. Remember, before my wall was blank, that doily that used to
Stunning
be on
doily.
it,
Mhm.
a stunning doily,
Uh-huh.
the stunning doily
Dreamcatcher.
dream
Yep.
catcher. Well, she did one, and she called the pineapples acorns, and I am like going, those are pineapples. Like she could hear me. I'm like, no, pineapples, pineapples,
You're
pineapples,
talking to her?
pineapples. It was so funny. But they did, because on hers they were so small, they did kind of look like acorns.
Right. Right.
It-
Oh,
Rita
that's
said she
nice,
went to
Rita.
college at
Yeah.
5, and in 8 weeks they learned how to read a pattern and did 7 doilies in thread.
That's great.
Must have
8
me.
weeks.
Must have me.
That's learning.
Yeah.
That is something that most people anywhere could not say nowadays.
Right.
They couldn't do it. If they were
Right.
just learning from someone, not
Mhm.
any YouTube, not any, whatever, nobody to help them but one person, one teacher.
Right.
That most people nowadays could not do it.
No.
But
Well, most people
it's
nowadays won't do
it
the bedspread.
Right.
well, that's true too. That's true.
Mhm.
Because it is hard. Some of them, the older ones, sometimes can be hard to read.
Oh,
Hard
I
to read.
remember that, Madonna.
Yep.
The whole words were written out.
Mhm.
I remember that.
Yep.
Yep, that's right. Yep, there wasn't no such thing as a DC or a SC or a
Mhm.
TR or
HBC, BLO. Yeah.
yeah. I remember when I was first learning, there wasn't any such thing as that. But then I was learning from my grandmother, and
Right.
we didn't have anything written down. Nothing.
Mm-mm.
It was all in
My
her head.
my mom made, and it's so funny. When I was growing up, she made one blanket, and it was a king size. She carried this thing everywhere we went. Everywhere. Now you have to remember, it was the 70s. It was the god awfulest, ugliest damn thing you ever did see. And when she got it done, it didn't it it like ended at the end of the bed. And so she had to add more. Oh, she was so mad. She had to add more so that it would hit the floor, because it went over the sides, but it didn't go over the back of the bed.
Right.
Yep.
So she went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. It was orange and brown
Oh yeah.
and yellow. Anyway,
Everybody's
I
was
for a
then.
really, really long time. And that thing, I'm not even joking around. That thing was heavy.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
You had to take it out
I've
and when
got
it was
the one.
done and let it wash in the
Mhm.
rain, in
Yeah.
the dirty rain. That was the only way you could wash it. Wouldn't fit in a washer.
Mm-hmm. I have a
Madonna.
blanket that my grandma taught me to crochet on, and it was nothing but little granny squares. Well, they're about this big, about
Right.
that square, and it was just granny squares. And she used a different color every round. You know, it was very colorful. I mean,
Right.
Rainbow Vomit doesn't even start to talk about it, but I've got that now. I can tell you
Pat.
exactly which square that I worked on in that blanket. But that thing weighs a ton.
Mhm.
You can't cover up with it, because if you put it on the bed and you get under it, you can't even raise your feet up. I mean, it's got your feet mashed down like that. You can't move. It's so heavy.
Right.
I can't use it, but you couldn't pay me enough for it.
Right.
It's price for me.
I agree, Pat. you're not going to make anybody mad making that
Oh
statement.
shoot, no.
But I totally agree. And I have bought a kit just for the darn pattern
Right.
and didn't even like the yarn that I mean, it wasn't that I didn't like the yarn. I didn't want the color of yarn that I got for that particular project that I
Right.
was
Because
going
you
to
saw
do.
it in a
Mhm.
different color scheme.
I mean, if I want to go yarn shopping, all I got to do is get off my little, well, you know, it ain't little, but get off my rear end and waddle into my yarn room and go do a little bit of
Uh-huh.
shopping.
Oh yeah,
And I'm sure I could come up with a blanket quantity of
very quickly.
whatever. Hey,
Hello,
Lisa.
Lisa.
Hey, Lisa.
Hey,
Yeah, it
Lisa.
was a straight jacket, Rita. It
Yeah.
truly is. You can't
Hmm.
move under it. That's for certain.
Madonna, when
And
I
when
was
they so
learning,
rolly, it's hot.
Madonna, when I was learning, my grandma would make me look at charts, and I would have to, from that chart, hand write out what the chart was telling me to do before she would let me crochet it.
Mhm.
And so I really do prefer a chart to work off of. There's no way I can make a chart on my pattern, so I don't do it. But um I think it all comes back to what I really wanted to, at the end of this discussion, stress is that if you get a pattern and you find one mistake, 10 mistakes, I would hope from the designer side that you would contact me. Take a moment to
Please
contact
do.
me and tell me that there is a problem. Now,
Yeah.
are you always going to get a thank you so much? I appreciate, you contacting me. No,
Mhm.
because there's been a couple of you say that you got a snarky response and somebody telling you don't ever contact me again. Well, I, as a
That's bad.
designer, am mortified that that happened to you
I can't
because,
believe it. It's awful.
yeah, that's horrible. But I would hope that you would contact, whether it's a free pattern or a paid pattern, that you would contact that designer because you're helping not only the designer, obviously, but you're helping those
Everybody
people
after you.
that come
Yeah.
after you. Exactly. To know that number one, there is a problem, whether it's with yourself and understanding or whether it's with the pattern itself. And to me, 9 times out of 10, I'm going to say it's probably the pattern, whether it's a misstitch, a misrepresentation of the stitch, or what's to follow. You know, I I have found myself. I had somebody test a pattern for me the other day, and she contacted me and she says, Maureen, I know this isn't what you meant to say, but do you realize here in the beginning you've got too many yarn over, yarn over, yarn overs? Because I was explaining a stitch I wanted to be used. And I was like, what? So sure enough,
It
I
was
pulled
just a
up the
misprint.
stitch. I got
Mhm.
yarn over friendly. Let me tell you, I was just yarn over here, yarn over
Mhm.
here, yarn over here. And it was like, oh, she said, I knew where you were going, Maureen, but somebody with a
Mhm.
little bit less knowledge would just have so many yarn overs on their hook, they'd be going, "What is this supposed to end up being?"
I'm
So,
sorry, but
Exactly.
the
that
misspelling of your email address was the best part.
do
Oh
what?
yes.
When you misspelled your email address,
Oh
that was
yeah,
the best part.
yeah.
Sorry.
Mhm.
I had to go back and
Yeah.
correct
Sorry,
my
not sorry.
template.
Oops. Yeah.
Sorry, not
Was it
sorry.
you?
And
Probably.
to
I
me,
corrected a
that's
couple
what you
things. I
should
missed the
do.
yarn overs
Yeah.
because I didn't even read
Yeah.
it.
Well,
Oops.
See
somebody
that?
else happened to read that same pattern and say,
Somebody else caught the yarn overs.
"Yeah."
I'm not saying who, but they might be right up there.
All right, over there. Yeah, I
Other
don't
way.
remember where it was. Anyway, somewhere
Anyway,
here, somebody caught the
I caught a
multiple
couple
yarn.
other things. I didn't
Yeah.
catch the yarn over.
Yeah.
But
I,
you
I
know,
I was trying to really critique it because she asked me to.
Yep.
She asked
right.
me to.
Which I caught a couple of
Anybody
other things.
else's, I would have just read and went with it,
Right.
and
I
I'd been
read
like,
through the
"What
in
the crap?"
oh no. You know, But a good example for you guys is if you are testing someone's pattern, if someone says to you, hey, I need my pattern tested. Would you do it for me? Are you just going to test a pattern and not tell them, oh, you got X number of typos. This is the typo. You spelled your own name wrong. You didn't put SC. You've got, SV.
Yeah.
You have to tell them all the little mistakes that are in there.
Right.
Everything. Yeah.
That's the whole thing about testing a pattern.
Right.
Every little mistake needs to be pointed out.
Yes,
one of the things also that was in Maureen's pattern, she asked me to look at, and I said, I know what you mean right here, but if it's somebody that hasn't ever seen this stitch before, you might think about typing
wording
this
it this
out,
way.
explaining a little bit, wording
Yes.
it out.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they might, misunderstand what you want them to do with this.
Right.
And when I was
Right.
testing her pattern, she sent me the copy, and I fixed what I found in red so that
Right.
she could see it. And when I sent it back to her, she was, more than welcome to use it or not use it. But
Right.
that was just my thought on it. And
Yeah.
I didn't expect her to use everything because I was
No.
really being down to the,
Nitpicky.
like Froggy said, down to every letter being right. Because I know what it's like when you get
Yeah.
a pattern and something like that is wrong. You think, well, good Lord, don't they know how to spell? That kind of thing.
Well, and it's like
No, but you need
Madonna
to.
said, that's why you're a tester.
Yes.
Yeah.
Don't say, yes, you're going to do it, and then not tell me I made a mistake because you're my
Right.
friend. That's not why I asked you to do it for me.
Mm-mm.
But, you expect your friends, or you would hope that your friends would say, I love you, but,
Yes.
you need to go back and fix this. Because
Right.
Exactly.
hopefully, because I'm going to tell you guys something. If you get one of my patterns, you're going to see who my testers were. It says tested on nearby. So that, not to call them out or anything, guys, that's not it. It's just my way of saying thank you so much to these people for testing the pattern. But
and not to mention, Maureen, you can look at it like if I was the consumer and bought your pattern and I saw Froggy Winter Knitting, Cherry the Yarny Elephant, tested this pattern.
Yes.
I would be like, okay, I know their work. I've seen their work before. So I know if they tested this, then it's probably a pretty good pattern.
Yep.
Or if you find a dozen errors, you're going to say, they tested this and there's a dozen errors? Oh, heck no.
Yep.
I don't
exactly,
know about them.
Rita.
Yeah, exactly.
Some designers write and completely forget commas and stops, and everything is like, what?
Yes.
Yep. Because you don't know where to stop. You don't know if you're making a cluster out of a single, double, triple, blah, 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 blah. You're like, well, does that all go in one stitch? Because you don't have it have a comma anywhere. Just for
exactly.
You don't know.
I also love what Nana Michelle said right here. If you know that Froggy did my pattern and there was still something that nobody caught, if I'm not available, they could reach out to one of them because they knew that they tested the pattern. Hello, my queen of the
my darling.
How are you, sweetheart?
Hey, love you so much.
She's having to babysit 2 sick little girls today. So
I hope the children of the corn are doing well.
Yes. But
yes,
that was a very good comment, Nana Michelle, and I really hadn't thought about like that. I was just wanting to give credit to the fact that they took time out of what they do because they are, new YouTube people out here in the community. They were willing to take the time to look at my pattern. But that is a very good point, and I hadn't thought about it like that. But thank you for that. Yes, if I'm not available, they can contact them.
Yes, Lisa.
And I wouldn't mind.
They are
at all. Yeah,
they
Let's
are.
I wouldn't mind.
And confirm they got strep throat.
Oh no.
Yeah.
And
No.
Divergent, thank you for letting me know that. I will keep that in mind.
Yes, there's a lot of things about patterns that everybody could comment on. There's
Mm-hmm.
something about something that
Right.
everybody says they wish was a little different. There's no doubt
Right.
about that. No doubt. That makes us
That's why we
all
all
different,
have our favorite
all unique.
designers.
Hmm.
That's why
Exactly.
we have all
Exactly.
have our favorite
Yes.
designers.
Mhm.
Exactly.
But the only thing that we were trying to come across with here is, what do you do if you know it's not you, it's a mistake in the pattern?
Yeah.
Not
Because you
saying that
have a group of people.
everybody is human.
Right.
Yeah, because you have a group of people doing a pattern and everybody's running into the same mistake. It's like, oh, good,
Then
it's
there's an
not me.
issue.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's not
Yeah.
just me. Yeah,
Right.
but
So
Definitely.
and I would, I take the time to try to contact the designer if I
right.
know it. If it's just me reading the pattern, I take a chance and I do try to contact them,
Right.
because I would rather be the one that they said go find you easier pattern,
Yeah.
or I'd rather be the one that got it corrected for everybody else on down the line.
Right.
Because, like I said, I never ever want to be the reason somebody gives up on crocheting because I couldn't help them. I never
Right.
want to be that. Never.
And two things that
Oh,
have just been brought up. Crystal Divergent Crafter says, as an ADHD person, heavy text makes me just want to avoid that area of the pattern. So, you got
Oh
to
yeah.
write for more than just, I'm going to say it this way, normal folks. And I love you, Crystal. But yeah, you have to think about who's going to be reading this and how are they going. What's the best format for them to understand what I want. And Amy G said,
Hmm.
when asked what level of a crocheter you are you a beginner or an intermediate? The answer could very well depend on who wrote the pattern. Stop it.
yes.
And that's true too. But if you know a certain designer uh, does more complicated patterns,
Mm-hmm.
like blankets or
Right.
whatever, and some of them can be god awful intricate,
Right.
and if you know that designer, that's their style of
Mm-hmm.
working, then you should know whether or not you can tackle their
That pattern.
work
That's
or
right.
have someone help you. If you've
Yeah.
got somebody to help you, then you can do anything.
Mhm.
You can do
Hello,
anything.
Daniel. How are you, sir?
Hey,
Hi, Daniel.
Daniel.
Hi, Daniel.
And
And
Tracy,
now
Miss Hot
Tracy has
said,
a good point
"Oh,
about having dyslexia
Right.
and not having it all the same font.
Right.
And, you
Mm-hmm.
need to have spaces in there,
Right.
mhm,
to help to see it.
Right.
mhm."
Absolutely.
So like I
Well,
said, it just
it
comes down to being willing, which we really hope that you will be, being willing to reach out to content creator and tell them
mhm,
I have found a mistake. And especially if you have a
mhm,
group that can back you up, like there's several of us that were working on a project and all of us were having a problem with this one particular row. And we think it was just either like a copy and paste from a previous row
Yeah.
or a number didn't get changed correctly, you know. And I mean, mistakes happen, but if we don't go back and let
it's
that
just
designer know that there was a problem here, it's never going to get corrected. And so
that's right.
we wanted to talk about this and we wanted to encourage you to please step out. Let the
Contact your
people
design.
that you are supporting, especially with the paid patterns, let them know. We all pray that you get a very welcoming response. We really do.
Yes.
But
And even
whether
if it's not a written pattern, if you're just watching a tutorial on YouTube, leave a
Mm-hmm.
comment. I was watching this and I think maybe you meant to say double crochet here where you said single.
Right.
Let them
Mm-hmm.
know. We're
Yeah.
human, and we're everybody that comes on YouTube to make a tutorial or any kind of video or anything else. The first few you do, you're so damn nervous you don't know what you're saying. You
Yeah.
have no clue, none.
And you never
Let
know
them
what's going
know
to
they
come out
may
of
have
my mouth.
a bad day. Well, you know what I mean.
Right.
If you meant to say it one way and it come out another,
I'm being
it's
silly.
because you're nervous or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, you know.
Yeah.
But
Well,
if
and
you
like
let them
Daniel
know,
said,
they'll fix it.
most designers are grateful for the feedback. Yep.
Exactly.
Always grateful for the
I know
feedback.
he is. I am.
Mm-hmm. Me
You
too.
It
are.
only makes you better. It only
It
makes you
does.
better.
That's
I am
right.
so tickled when I'm in a pattern and I can't understand what it's saying to do, and I'm frustrated and whatever, and somebody helps me, and I'm like a aha moment. I'm so
Mhm.
tickled I can't understand myself because I've
Right.
got something new. I've got
Mm-hmm.
something that I learned. I
Yeah.
want
Yes.
to learn things that I don't know. I'm a person that says why,
Right.
how,
Yeah.
what color, all that. I know those kind of things. I'm just that
Right.
kind of person. So it helps me anytime somebody gives me even a little criticism, good or bad. It
Right.
helps a lot. So don't be afraid to help your
No.
designer by
Right.
telling them, I think maybe there was a mistake here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if you're
You
having a
know,
problem and you're not getting any help, you got my email. Just email me. Let me know
There
what your
you
problem
that's
go.
is.
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
I'll
Yeah.
help you out as
And
best I can.
all,
Hello, crazy
yes,
not
all of
Lisa.
us.
Yeah.
Hey,
You
Lisa,
got these other ones.
all of us,
Got all these
Anybody.
all,
ones too.
yeah,
Anybody.
all of us.
Oh, if
I
it's a
mean, any
doily, you got to reach out to this one. Just saying.
of, yeah, down there.
Or
She
that
knows.
one.
No, no,
And,
she knows.
Daniel's statement applies to what we were talking about today. Now, of course, he's talking about yarn. He said, I know this is not pattern related, but if there's an issue with my yarn, come to me and tell me. I've heard
Yeah.
so many stories of others telling other people things, but not coming to me directly, which is much more annoying. And that's the other
Yeah.
thing. That's why we want you to go to the designer or the company, wherever the pattern came from, contact them directly
Yes.
because like I said, and like Rita said, one bad comment,
Yep, it's
That's
going to
all it
ruin
loses
that.
takes.
sales, and it
And
hurts
I
for
don't want
everybody.
to stop a designer from designing because you
No.
never know what the next pattern might be, the one that goes all over the world, you
Right.
know? And just because of one tiny little human or computer mistake,
Right.
it might
Right.
not be anything but a mistake, a typo. Like you said,
Mm-hmm.
just a typo. You didn't mean
Right.
to.
Yeah.
But it could be that one little thing that you're helping them with that helps them the next time to make that pattern that goes viral.
Right.
You never can
Right.
tell.
Right.
So help your designers. Help them out, girls,
Yeah.
guys. Be brave. Be
I
brave.
mean, you know, you can reach out to Dan if you have a problem with the yarn. If you have a problem with the pattern, I know he's more than willing to try to help you.
Mm-hmm.
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 He's
Yep.
very good at crochet. You've got all of us on panel who would help you out.
Yep.
I
You
love
know,
to help.
Right. Right.
Love to help.
it's fantastic.
And there are other great YouTubers that would reach out and accept your
Absolutely.
questions. It's not just us, it's
Oh
everybody
yeah.
in the yarn community.
You
So,
know,
I don't
yeah.
know of a one that wouldn't.
reach out.
Right.
That's what we're here for. Reach out. And, reach out to the designer. The worst thing they're going to do is say no,
Mm-hmm.
Well, I
which
would
would be
hope
bad.
Yeah, I would hope that would not be the case, but we all know that there are those out in the world that are not into customer
They're born
relations.
to be ugly.
Hey,
But
yeah,
Yeah.
majority of them are going to be grateful you let them know.
that's right.
Yes.
That's right.
Because at the end of the day, folks, when a designer makes a pattern, they're trying to make a living,
Oh
They
yeah,
are.
or they're offering it for free because they want you to make whatever it is that
Hmm.
they made.
mm-hmm.
They want you to
I see.
understand what they are trying to say, and
Right.
they're grateful for the help. Because if I
Mm-hmm.
was making money on it, yeah, I want somebody to tell me if I had made a mess, because the next person's
Yeah,
not
that's
going to pay
true.
for it. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
they're just not going to do it. And
Right.
as a consumer, I realize that. And I'm not a designer, but I understand the designer point of view to it.
Right.
They want it to be correct.
Oh
Otherwise,
yeah.
they wouldn't have put the pattern out there to make money on.
Right. Right.
So,
Well,
you know,
it has been over an hour, and
Yeah.
guys, I
all
feel
right.
like the discussion has been really great. I appreciate your feedback, and
Yes.
as I said, our main purpose was to get your feedback. How do you handle mistake problems, and to encourage you to step out there and call us out.
Mm,
Say, hey,
yes.
I found a mistake. And if it's not a
Exactly.
mistake, then explain to me what you wanted. So
Call me out.
Hmm.
I have no
it has
Ask
problem.
for
been
help.
it has been a wonderful hour, a little over an
Thank you,
hour, in
Froggy.
fact. But we love
Thank you,
you
Froggy.
so
Thank you,
so much.
Carrie.
Thank you,
You're welcome.
Froggy. Thank you, Carrie, for being up here with us and
Yeah.
giving us
Thank you
your
for having
opinions as
us.
well. Yes, yes.
And thank all you
So
beautiful people for being here to talk with us.
Yes.
right, right.
Thank you guys.
We love seeing you every day,
So
no
much.
matter whose channel you're on. We love seeing you.
Oh,
So,
Remember, be a
love you all.
blessing.
And that's
yes,
right.
and be the light
Love
out
all
there in
you
the darkness
guys.
today, folks, because I believe everyone has a light, and your light might be the light that someone out there needs to see today. So, go out there, shine your light. Love you all.
Love you guys.
Love you
Bye.
all.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.